Our headline today comes to us from the Wall Street Journal, written by a guy who's been on the show, our friend Spencer Jakab. Saw this a couple weeks ago, OG, and I think it's time for us to really get back to basics here. I really like this piece. Spencer writes, the opening shot in Animal House pans across the campus of idyllic Faber College, focusing on a statue of its founder inscribed with the words, "Knowledge is good." The statement so obvious as to be laughable, the perfect way to kick off an hour and 49 minutes of not so subtle humor. But is knowing more always good? In investing, at least, it isn't. It can even hurt. Listen to this experiment. This is a 1973 experiment, guys, that he dives into. Psychologist Paul Slovic gathered 8 talented handicappers to guess the outcome of 40 actual horse races in 4 rounds. The names of the jockeys and the steeds were hidden, but the handicappers could ask for 5 pieces of information. Any 5 they wanted. 5 pieces of information from a set list of 88. So gave them 88 choices. You can choose 5. They were also asked to say how confident they felt. How do you think the guys did?
Better than average, but not very great.
They did very well. They reached 70% accuracy compared to 10% if they guessed just blindly. And their confidence was almost exactly right, too, at 19% confidence. So their confidence matched the expectation. Now, here's what's interesting. In the next 3 rounds, they could ask for 10, 20, and finally 40 bits of information. So they were given more information. Their conviction went up to 34%. But their results stayed the same at 17%. The more information they got, OG, it didn't do any good. More information did not solve their problem. I think there's a huge, and obviously Spencer Jakab does too, huge correlation with investing here. Huge. More information, not always going to save the day.
Well, there's a great book that was written by Larry Bossidy called Execution. And
such a good book.
That's that's really the name of the game. I mean, when it comes to investing, when it comes to, I mean, really anything. I mean, we talk, the 3 of us talk about, you know, eating healthy and exercise and our golf games. And, you know, like we just taught, we know what to do. It's like, I know I'm not supposed to eat cake and drink bourbon. But I do, you know, it's like, I know I'm supposed to start my Roth IRA when I'm 16, but I don't, you know, I know I'm supposed to have a cash reserve and not charge stuff on my credit card and have interest and, you know, buy a house within my means. And I know all of these things. We know all of these things. And yet we do the opposite anyway. So, so you have to figure out what's that?
He points out sometimes, OG, that more information makes you crazy overconfident. He talks about how in October 2001, 5 Goldman Sachs analysts wrote an 11-page report calling Enron, quote, still the best of the best.
I have a tweet that somebody sent me from, I think it was Jim Cramer, that said something like, Silicon Valley Bank is the best bank in America or something. It was like literally,
right.
It was literally tweeted like 10 hours before it went belly up. I mean, you know, what's that phrase? Confidence is what a man feels just before he learns all the facts. You know, it's like, when it comes to investing, the solution is process, right? The solution is recurring process, not more intel, because again, you know, you can have more and more information, but that doesn't mean that you're going to do anything with it. I was talking to somebody a couple of weeks ago about something and I was talking about something I was going to do. I said, I'm going to go do this thing. And he said, do you know that, merely telling people that you're going to do something gives you the dopamine of actually doing it? So you're really not supposed to tell people you're going to go do something, because your brain can't tell the difference between going to do, like when you tell the thing, like if you say, hey, I'm going to start exercising 5 days a week, right? And you get all juiced about it. Your brain doesn't know the difference between actually exercising 5 days a week and telling people that you're going to exercise 5 days a week, especially if you tell the story with a lot of enthusiasm and emotion. So you get all the benefits, and then your brain goes, oh, we're awesome. Good job, everybody.
This is absolutely the best thing I've heard all week. This is the best
well,
news
it's Monday.
ever.
It's Monday. Yeah. So, so you're supposed, so just merely even talking about the change in your life can have a negative impact on it. It's weird.
This is what writers don't like to talk about what they're going to write, because you get all the emotion out when you're telling people about it. And if you talk about it too much, every writer will tell you never write it. So you keep it to yourself so you can spill the emotion onto the page and not through the discussions that you have. And I think anybody that believes that buying individual stocks is the way to go, I think this is something individual stock investors have to watch out for. Individual property investors, you get emotional when you know more about the thing. Like if you own Apple stock, the tendency would be, I think, to dig into what's going on at Apple. The latest thing, all the stuff, but I got a family member who is deeply involved in the GameStop stuff still. And he will tell me every single great thing that's going on with GameStop currently, while we've seen GameStop stock really not do much. But he's a true believer. And I think personally, he's a true believer partly because he just has this depth of knowledge about this product that, man, the more he owns a bunch of stock, he feels like he knows the management team, gives him this bias toward buy more. Everything's going to be great.
Yeah. Which is, I think, shameless plug, but this is part of the reason why advisors, whether it's the financial planners that we are, or tax people, or attorneys, or, other third-party professionals, health coaches, are so valuable a lot because they don't have the baggage. They don't have the story that goes with your thinking, to your point, right? I mean, when you listen to your family member talk about GameStop, I'm sure you just shake your head and go, no, dude, no. Like, cause you don't have the baggage of that experience. It never makes sense to have all of your money sitting in one company stock. I mean, there's thousands of examples of why that's a terrible idea. Yeah. Most recently, those two banks that just went, three, I guess you count Credit Suisse, right? So, and yet next week we'll all talk to people who are like, yeah, but that's not going to happen to my company. It's like, okay. So,
and you would hear more about individual investors being lights out better than the rest of us. I think we'd hear far more stories of that if it were true. We always hear the opposite of true. Down at the bottom of this piece, Spencer writes, the fire hose of information available to retail investors through their smartphones is even worse. When millennial focus broker Robinhood sold shares to the public back in 2021, it revealed that active customers check the app more than 7 times a day on average. 7 times a day. And yet, I'm not hearing tons of stories of lots of these Robinhood investors knocking.
They weren't 7 times. They weren't 7 times better than the professional investors or the buy and hold, systematic investors. Weird.
Big case here for indexing. Again, just staying away from the bias, or at the very least, there's a guy here on StockTwits who talks about, at the very least, you need to know what your bias is, that you have this bias, and counter it. Listen to voices from the other side. If you're going to be an active investor, great. I am to a certain degree, a little bit. I've got a Sandbox account. I think, OG, you have a little Sandbox account. It's fun to do, but man, knowing where your bias is a big part of winning. We will link to.
I got a Sandbox,
and Doug's got a Sandbox.
It's like a kitty litter box, but
same thing. Just smells a little different, right? We will link to this in our show notes at stackingbenjamins.com. And of course, we will take a deeper dive into this topic and our newsletter, the 201, that always comes out the day after the show. stackingbenjamins.com/201 to subscribe to the 201 newsletter.